As you can see, I'm not a Russian bot. I'm Spanish and a US citizen. So I was raised in countries, or not countries, but I was raised in the part of the world that's anti-Russian historically. So, but I resist the indoctrination, which includes GoldenEye 64, where you can kill Russians. It's a great game, but it still has, you know, the old story that Russian equals bad, Westerner equals good. That's nonsense. They're both bad. And which is worse? Well, depends on the particular issue talking about, but overall, Westerners are worse than Russians. Not that Russians aren't Europeans, they are Europeans. I hate when people say that when they say Russia versus Europe. Russia is Europe, even though most of it is in Asia, because it's an empire, even though they don't call it an empire anymore. Anyway, after this minute-long introduction, which I'm sure didn't annoy you, let's begin here. So I proved I'm not a Russian bot. This is me, not a Russian. Do I look Russian to you? If I do, that's a compliment. Some people say I look Indian. Some people say, some people call me shitface because I tanned because I'm a native to Southern Europe, unlike Northern Europeans who become orange like Trump. Anyway, moving on here. Here's a video of Western propaganda that, well, listen.
From Russian nuclear weapons. While Russia doesn't have full control of any of the regions it has invaded this year, its recent defeats in the northeast of Kharkiv Oblast have pushed it to organize a sham referendum in occupied territories the weekend of September 24th, 2022. Just like when it annexed Crimea in 2014, Russia will hold an election in the areas it has invaded with no credible international oversight and likely with armed guards pressuring a pro-Russian vote. While Western countries will definitely not recognize the results of this election, they are powerless to stop it from happening and thus to stop Russia from using the referendum as an excuse to use nukes. So let's get to the question you've been waiting for.
The question is, why are Westerners such massive hypocrites? Why are they such massive hypocrites? Let me show you a little bit of history, alright? India in 1975 conquered, after invading Sikkim, conquered a city, and they had a referendum with Indian soldiers. So can you trust those votes? People were voting for their lives, and if you voted wrong, maybe they killed you. Oh, but Indians are good, they never do anything wrong, it's Russians who are bad. No, that's nonsense. So you get to cherry pick when referendums count and when they don't. Democracy is so stupid. You can never rely on votes because votes don't count. It's who counts the votes that counts, as Stalin was said to have said. And so that's why Sikkim, which is near Tibet, is part of India, because Indians conquered it against the will of many of the natives. But of course, in the West, they don't say free Sikkim like they say free Tibet. No, because they're massive hypocrites. And then the United States had this agent who staged a coup. And by the way, his name Dole reminds me of like fruit juice. And that was probably the business, because they grew fruits in Hawaii. He staged a coup against Queen Liliuokalani with the tacit support of the United Snakes. So after taking over, because they could, then they had a referendum. Oh goodness, almost 100% of the people voting supported joining the US. Wow, it's so democratic to invade a country, steal it, and then say that they wanted it to happen. They wanted to get their power lost and their queen dethroned. They wanted to be humiliated. That's what they wanted, because if the US did not do this, then the Japanese would have done so. So it's alright, right? Now earlier I said that the Spanish were justified in conquering America because if they didn't, the Muslims would have done so. But that was just one of the reasons in my argument. The more important reason is that the civilization of Spain was less immoral than the civilization of human sacrificing Aztecs, human sacrificing Incas, cannibal Caribs, and so forth. And they improved the civilization more than they did bad. So they were better than the previous tyrants, because it's always tyranny. What is democracy? It's the tyranny of the majority. Democracy is two wolves and a sheep deciding what to have for dinner. And that's a quote. So Westerners are massive hypocrites, and I did a video on the swastika, as you can see here, the pattern in the NATO logo, showing that you know, not only are you hypocrites, you're also Nazis. So you're hypocrites twofold. For the referendum nonsense, where you get to do it but not Russians, and also because you say Nazis are bad and yet you have a damn swastika here. What a joke the West is. But no, you guys have the Ukraine flag flying in your homes and you're so patriotic and you have them as blindfolds and everything. You're so righteous, man. These stars on the flags are fallen angels symbolically. You people don't know who really runs the world. You don't know anything. You believe in a superficial, Disney-esque version of history and reality, sold to you by the television, sold to you by Masonic governments and corporations, and Masonic establishments that are religious and in some cases atheist movements. All these things are Masonic when they are worldly and rich. They have everything, and I proved it in my series on the overrated British Empire. So as a Westerner who grew up here in Florida most of my life, was in Pennsylvania for a year, and was born in Honduras, and I visited Switzerland to poop there before I moved on to China. I hate the West. That's one of the reasons I left the West. It's a bunch of shit and a bunch of self-righteous shitheads. That's what the West is generally. There are exceptions, alright? So yeah, the West isn't the best. It's shit. And the East isn't good either. The whole world is shit. But the West is among the worst. Well, it's one or the other. So which is worse? Well, it depends on the issue, as I said earlier. But generally speaking, the US, because it has had more power to do more evil, lo and behold, it has done more evil.